Welcome to the Criminal Imagination. This series, Crime and Civilization, begins with a simple question. What if the true purpose of law is not justice, but control? Across centuries, crime fiction has recorded the political fears of its age, from cursed kings and cunning thieves to corrupt judges and silent witnesses. Each episode investigates how power operates through narrative, what it hides, who it condemns, and what happens when the system turns inward and begins to devour itself. Today, we examine a tale of quiet domesticity, sudden violence, and chilling confession. Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. On the surface, it's a short gothic horror about a man who kills his pet and later his wife. But beneath the horror lies something more unsettling. A meditation on madness, moral collapse, and the fragile boundary between legal sanity and criminal responsibility. This is not just a story about a murderer. It is a story about the limits of modern law to judge the human mind. It is also a case study of how Poe, writing in the early 19th century, anticipates the philosophical crisis that would come to define modern criminal justice. If the mind is unknowable even to itself, how do we punish it? Let's begin with the story itself. A man never named sits in a prison, awaiting execution. He writes a narrative of what brought him here, insisting that he is not mad. This insistence is, of course, what alerts us to the possibility that he is. He tells of a descent, once kind and gentle, especially to animals, he becomes violent after alcoholism takes over. He mutilates and then kills his cat Pluto. Later he adopts another black cat, one that eerily resembles the first, including a missing eye, and eventually murders his wife in a rage, entombing her behind a cellar wall. When the police arrive, he is calm and cooperative until he raps on the wall himself, revealing the cat's wailing and with it the corpse. The man is arrested and sentenced to death. He writes to unburden his soul. This basic narrative form, the first person criminal confession, is significant. It marks a shift in literary and legal culture. Crime fiction, as it emerges in the 19th century, becomes increasingly obsessed with the subjectivity of the criminal. In earlier periods, the law judged acts. In the modern state, it begins to judge minds, and Poe is among the first to dramatize this epistemological turn. By placing us inside the mind of the murderer, Poe focuses us to ask, can we trust a criminal to narrate his own descent? If the law now concerns itself with intention, madness, and moral awareness, then how can it ever truly know what occurred? This shift from external event to internal instability is the first sign of a broader cultural transformation. In Poe's story, the law must confront a terrifying new reality. Not all crime is rational, and not all criminals are sane. One of the central tensions of The Black Cat is whether the narrator is mad or evil. He insists he is neither. Yet we watch as he commits atrocities with increasing ease, driven by impulses he cannot explain. He cuts out the eye of his beloved pet, he hangs it, he kills his wife with an axe, he conceals her body with apparent calm. Madness in Poe is not chaos, it is lucidity corrupted. The narrator is not incoherent, he is articulate, philosophical, self aware, and that is what makes him terrifying. He understands what he has done, but his motivations are inscrutable even to him. At one point, he writes, but tomorrow I die, and today I would unburden my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plainly, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. He seeks a moral audience, but disavows moral intent. He is neither repentant nor fully remorseless. He claims he is not seeking sympathy, yet devotes pages to explaining himself. This ambiguity strikes at the heart of modern criminal jurisprudence. In the Enlightenment tradition, punishment is premised on rationality. A person must be capable of understanding right and wrong, of choosing to obey or disobey the law. But Poe suggests that such clarity is an illusion, that one might know something is wrong and still do it, or worse, that one might feel an uncontrollable urge to destroy the very thing one loves. This aligns with 19th century developments in moral philosophy and early psychology. Freud would later call it the death drive. Schopenhauer described it as the will's rebellion against itself. The narrator of the black cat acts not from reason or rage, but from an abyss deeper than either. He confesses, I am above the weakness of seeking to establish a sequence of cause and effect between the disaster and the atrocity. This line in the story's legal heresy. It denies the fundamental assumption of modern law that crimes can be explained. At one level, The Black Cat is a story of domestic horror, but that domesticity is no accident. Poe deliberately situates the violence within the bourgeois home, a symbol of order, stability, and moral respectability. The narrator begins as an ideal husband, loving, tender, fond of animals. He has a wife, a household pet, civilization in miniature. But slowly the structure collapses. The cat's eye becomes a symbol of surveillance, of conscience, and perhaps of guilt. Alcohol loosens the narrator's restraint, his rational mind loses hold, his violence escalates, from animal to spouse, from impulsive cruelty to premeditated concealment. This is where Norbert Elias's concept of the civilizing process becomes relevant. In Elias's theory, modern society emerged through the gradual internalization of social controls, especially over violence. The state monopolizes force, the individual is taught to suppress impulse. But Poe stages the inverse. The narrator's instincts return. He becomes feral, uncontrolled, homicidal, within the domestic space meant to symbolize his civility. The cellar where he hides the body is the descent metaphor made literal. This reversal of the civilizing process is Poe's critique of bourgeois morality. Civilization, he suggests, is a thin veneer. Under pressure, that is addiction, guilt, compulsion, it cracks. The cruelty to the cat is not incidental. In the 19th century, animal cruelty was both a social concern and a proxy for broader moral questions. The first anti-cruelty laws were being debated. Abuse of animals was often interpreted as an early warning sign of violent pathology. So when Poe's narrator kills Pluto, he signals not only moral decay but legal liminality. Is this a man who should be punished, treated, feared? Let us now turn to the legal implications. In Poe's time, the legal doctrine of insanity was undergoing transformation. The landmark case of Daniel Magnaten in 1843, the same year Poe published The Black Cat, established a new standard, the Magnaten Rule. According to it, a person is legally insane if at the time of the act they did not understand the nature of their act or that it was wrong. This is the very legal border the narrator dances upon. He knows what he has done. He even plans it. He is not delusional. Yet he also claims. Who has not 100 times found himself committing a vile or a silly action for no other reason than because he knows he should not? This is the doctrine of perverseness. Poe names it directly, and in doing so, he introduces a category that defies the legal binary of sanity and insanity. What if the mind is neither irrational nor rational, but governed by a darker force, not hallucination, not ignorance, but compulsion? Modern law has never been fully able to accommodate this category. It wants clear lines. Was the person aware? Could they form intent? Were they delusional? But perverseness, this compulsion to self-destruction, to transgress for his own sake, destabilizes the very structure of intent-based legality. The narrator says, "It was this unfathomable longing of the soul to vex itself, to offer violence to his own nature." This is not legal language. It is metaphysical. And yet, the legal system must pronounce judgment. Here lies Poe's provocation. The state claims to judge reason, but it cannot grasp the irrational with rational tools. The Black Cat is a story about the failure of forensic clarity, the unknowability of motive, the chaos beneath the courtroom. Let us now consider the confession itself, not just what it reveals, but what it does. The narrator's story is written to unburden his soul, but he also knows his audience. He writes for the public, for us, for the story that will judge, punish, and remember him. This is where Michel Foucault becomes useful. In Discipline and Punish, Foucault outlines the shift from public execution to internal discipline. The state no longer burns bodies, it disciplines souls. Confession becomes a central technique of power, not to redeem but to classify. By confessing, the criminal is not just punished, he is made legible. The confession becomes evidence of the crime, of the pathology, of the self. Poe's narrator participates in this ritual, but he subverts it. He offers no clear remorse, no coherent cause, no redemption. His confession is an act of narrative power, perhaps even defiance. He tells us, if you want reason, you may want reason, but there is none. This is a confession that destabilizes confession itself. It offers not transparency, but opacity. It becomes a mirror in which the reader must confront their own need for causality, for moral order, for narrative closure. The modern state wants confession to clarify crime. Poe gives us confession as an aesthetic disturbance, as horror. We cannot also ignore the cat. Pluto, and later his eerie double, are more than animals. They are symbols. The first cat is mutilated and hanged, an act of guilt, of cruelty, of irrational destruction. The second cat returns as a kind of a living judgment. The second cat bears the mark of the gallows on his fur. It follows the narrator everywhere. It watches. It is in effect a specter of conscience, but not a human conscience, an animal conscience. And this is crucial. Poe refuses to make morality a purely human trait. In fact, it is the animal who survives. The man who destroys is condemned. The cat is also the agent of justice. It leads the police to the cops, not out of loyalty, but out of an eerie, inhuman vengeance. This is where the story becomes cosmic. Justice does not come through the law or through remorse or even through God. It comes through the return of the animal, through the refusal of the forgotten, the mutilated, the non-human to stay buried. In Poe's vision, justice is uncanny. It is not ordered. It is not rational. It is the scream behind the wall, the thing that will not be silenced. Let us pull back a little. What is the black cat in the larger narrative of the crime fiction? The Black Cat is a story of legal failure, of epistemological dread, of moral collapse. It is also a tale of how the modern state, in its quest to codify justice, runs up against the limits of the human mind. Poe gives us a murderer who is not insane by legal standards, but whose motives defy all legal logic. He gives us a crime that is planned, but not rational, a confession that is detailed, but not penitential, a justice that arrives but through animal terror, not law. In this way, The Black Cat is a critique of Enlightenment optimism. It rejects the idea that law, reason, and science can fully grasp the soul. It offers instead a world of shadows, where motive dissolves, where conscience is a wailing cat, where evil is not chosen but compelled. It anticipates modern questions that haunt forensic psychiatry, criminal jurisprudence, and moral philosophy. Is the criminal mind knowable? Is evil explainable? What do we do with a person who knows and still destroys? What if reason is not our highest faculty but our most fragile illusion? In the end, The Black Cat is not about the man who kills his wife. It is about the world that tries to understand him. Poe does not comfort. He offers confrontation with madness, with guilt, with the failure of law to capture the soul. In our ongoing series, Crime and Civilization, this case file remains open with the question: if madness can be reasoned, narrated, and confessed, where then does the law draw its line between the criminal and the madman? And in whose voice does justice finally speak, that of the rational state or the haunted conscience? Because what haunts us most is not the cat behind the wall, it is the thought that we too might someday hear it scream. Until next time.